Welcome back to another episode of Coop's Corner. Today is going to be a little bit of a different episode. It is not going to be the traditional, it's not going to be really breaking down the card or anything, or like the past card. Now, what we do have is Mario Batista in the main event this weekend. It's Batista versus Oliveira. After these past two cards, it's kind of really just goes kind of downhill. Not downhill, but kind of takes a step down for what it is. The upcoming fight nights are looking amazing. We have Sean Strickland and Anthony Hernandez up next. But however, it feels like a step down from the main events that we've just had. But I do think Bautista can win it. But that's one of the new that's just a little part of the news breaking in the UFC. So we did have is the England card get announced this week, which is going to be Mosov Evloev versus Laurel Murphy for the number one contender spot. This is a number one contender fight, and it is a great fight. Someone's O has got to go. That is an amazing fight, and I absolutely love that the UFC booked it. Talking about bookings now, Dana White has come out and said he has not ran the UFC since I think 2017 or 2017, I think he said it was. He has not been matchmaking or working on contract negotiations ever since. This is all breaking due to the antitrust lawsuit the UFC is facing. Now, what does this mean? I am really kind of unsure, my personal opinion, but I'm very also confused about it because I also thought that Dana White was the CEO of the UFC, because when TKO took over, they named him the CEO. I am very confused about that, because so if he has not ran the UFC since 2017, what's the point of being called the CEO then of the UFC? That's just where I'm at with it. But it also kind of explains kind of maybe the lackluster, like the mixing up of like divisions, and like how matchmaking has seemed biased because it hasn't been Dana. If Dana really hasn't been a part of matchmaking, it really makes a bunch of sense now that fan favorites are getting favorable matchups and really early matchup. Like if we're really looking at it, this could explain why Paddy Pimblett got shot up into the top, why Sean O'Malley got shot straight up into the top. That explains why it's possibly that. Because if Dana isn't in the room matchmaking or negotiating these contracts, this makes perfect sense to why. Because you have fan favorites, but the UFC fans clearly see that they are not the number one contender, but the UFC sees money in that. It's just really confusing in my opinion, and it kind of just throws up why is he named CEO then. To kind of go more into that, it's a little bit more of a question: does Dana White come back to the UFC and run it after this lawsuit? Now, I know many fans have been speculating of what Dana White will possibly be doing. He's been focused on other things, it literally seems like, and he seems like he's focused on Zuffa boxing now. Does Dana White come back to the UFC though? That is my big question. But it is all up in the air for what could happen next, in my opinion at least. I don't really see... I see Dana White possibly coming back. Potentially. But it's kind of up in the air, in my opinion. And what we do have next is we have a couple fight nights up before another numbered event. And next week we do have Sean Strickland versus Anthony Hernandez. Along with Danny Ige fighting on the card. This will be an interesting card because it is basically seemingly who is going to be one of the top contenders in the division next. And then finally, we have Moreno versus Kavanagh. That is another breaking news that brought up. Amabayev did pull out of the fight, and now it is Kavanagh fighting Moreno. So we have that. And then also on that card, we have Marlon Vera versus David Martinez. And that will be the Mexico City card. Now, now after that card, we have UFC 326 with Holloway versus Oliveira 2. I like this fight a lot, along with Renato Marcano fighting on it. And then we have Kyle Bahayo fighting Renier de Ritter, and Gregory Rodriguez and Bruno Ferreira, and Rob Font taking on Raul Rosas Jr. in a rebooking that was supposed to take place last Noche UFC, but now it is moved to this. Obviously, we have a lot of UFC cards and exciting events to look forward to. That'll be it for this week's episode. Thank you all very much for watching. As always, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you for watching.